when people are apathetic about democratic process, Team Thailand today believes that we need to make sure that they are aware of what democracy is and they understand that election is something very crucial and election actually changes their life because whatever policy the government makes, it will directly affect them, and that's why the electorate needs to understand that. So now let me jump into the first flash and the idea of government needs to take extra steps to make sure that people are empowered and aware of their rights. On the first point, government needs to be reflective of electorate's needs. Government right now in the democratic country, they are of the people, for the people, by the people. They need to make sure that elections are aware. When there's an election, a national election, people are aware of the process. People actually understand that this election will reflect how the country progress. It will reflect who is going to be member of the parliament and who's going to lead the countries. So we think it's very important for these people for the electorate to understand that they need to come to participate as much as possible, and for the government itself to get legitimacy. For the government itself to get legitimacy of being a government that create progress in the countries, in the election, we believe that they need as much number of people to come to the ballot box, to vote and to express their ideas. Even if it doesn't say that they vote for this particular government or this particular parties, it's very important for the countries to know that this particular government actually reflects the acceptance of the people in the country, even if they vote no or even if they vote blank. So ladies and gentlemen, within a new government right now, when they see the result of the ballot box, when they see that there's 10% saying no, there's 10% saying blank, they would realize that there's 10% of the government actually do not care about politics, and that's why this particular government needs to make sure that that citizens and electorates in the country are aware of what's going on, are aware of the news and current events and how the country progress. We think by not voting at all, just stay home, that's an insult to democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, when you don't go to vote, it doesn't all of a sudden say that that person doesn't care about politics. It doesn't all of a sudden say that that person has no political opinions. We think there's a sense of ambiguity that the government will never know what those people who didn't go to the ballot box at that time want from the government. But we think just for the fact that they go to the ballot box and actually vote blank, that actually means that these people think that they don't want this particular government or they do not accept what's going on in the status quo, and that means a lot. Moving on to the second level, on the idea of whether compulsory is essential or not. They said it's against autonomy of the people. We don't think that's the case. The government is by the social contract theory. They're supposed to protect the country, and they're supposed to make sure that everything they do is benefiting the country in the overall and in the long term. When we see election as actually going to determine what's going to happen to the country in the next 4 years or the next term, that means it's something very crucial and something very compulsory. So we see a need of making it mandatory. And we think when they talk about voting, we talk about the future of the countries, and that's why government sometimes can make sure or say it's compulsory for the citizens to do something. We see an example in so many countries that they have compulsory education, that they force the students to go to school when they see greater benefits, that these students need to be educated to make sure that in the future they become electorates, that they are aware of what's going on in the country. Yes, sir.
Could you be the first speaker on your team to explain to us why voter education can't occur without mandatory voting in national elections, and why?
Sir, because when you don't go to the ballot box, the government has no clue what's in your mind, and the government doesn't understand at all what do you want from this particular government. And third of all, let's take a look at what's the result in this election. Even if in the government itself, when they see diversity in the result, we think it's even better for the government to see this diversity in the result. When they see so many minority groups are voting for the opposing party, that means that, because these politicians, they also care about their future, that they want to be in parliament for the next term, they will realize that, maybe these other politicians actually have better ideas, and they will try to embrace the policy of the opposing party. vote for others or vote for other campaigns, they will realize that other policies should be embraced within that particular government.
Point of information, ma'am?
If I move on to second class, yes, sir.
Can you be the first person to explain to us why the vote is the only available means of making your desires known to politicians?
Sir, that leads me perfectly to my second class. Let's take a look at the people and why are they apathetic, right? Why are they voter apathetic, and why we need to make sure that they're involved in political system. On the first point, people are apathetic because they feel that politics are distant from them. They don't see a direct effect right now. So people look at the government. Sometimes the policies right currently doesn't really addressing them. Maybe the government for example, in Thailand, is investing in infrastructure set with a centralized plan that's only developed the capitals when we're talking about Bangkok. Because this government, it's not that they meant any harm, but it's that they feel that they need to look at the country in a holistic picture. So we need to realize that when people go to these ballot box and they say they don't want to see that policy because they didn't elect the old government, that actually reflects the needs of the people. And when you make it compulsory, we think it's better for the people to actually care, because why they have to go to the ballot box anyway? For them, actually, they're sacrificing their time. They're sacrificing so many things that they could have done in that day. But you know what else does that mean? That means because there's so much opportunity cost, they actually think about what they're going to do. They're actually going to think what they're going to put down on that ballot box. Who is they going to mark for? Who's they going to vote for? Or whether they're going to vote no or not. Whether it's worth it to say nothing about the politics, or whether it's worth it, or whether it's better to actually choose someone that they trust and choose someone that they think can improve the country. So that's why we think by voting out, by voicing themselves out, if they can choose the party that they deem right at that time, it's actually going to help the society as a whole. Moving on to the last level, when my deputy speaker come up here and talk about minority group. Ladies and gentlemen, we think it's very important right now when we see in some traditional culture, women or some other economically challenged electorates, they don't see the point of going to an election. By making it mandatory, you know what's going to happen? These people who are also concerned about their profits, who are also concerned about their money, they will go to the ballot box. And as I said earlier, because they're actually sacrificing their time, they're actually going to care more about the ballots that they're going to put into that box. That means democracy as a whole will improve, because when people are active about politics, that means they know what's going to happen, and that means that new government will be representing the people. And even furthermore, ladies and gentlemen, when opposition side was talking about petition, we think at the end of the day, you need to come back to elect the people. So that's why we are so proud to present democracy that comes along with mandatory voting. Thank you very much.